So I just watched the Iron Lung movie and honestly, it wasn't even that bad. If anything, I actually kind of enjoyed it. That being said though, this movie definitely isn't for everyone. It's for like a small group of people. Not small enough to be niche, but you get the point. Now, as usual, I'm very late to the party, but I'm gonna give my 2 cents anyway. This video isn't about this, so I'm gonna keep it brief. I thought Markiplier's acting was good, and the visual effects were low-key pretty peak. Yeah, the first half of the movie is practically less entertaining than watching paint dry, but the second half really pays off. That slow tension is why the second half is so dreading and disturbing in the first place. The movie was marketed as a horror movie, but it wasn't necessarily scary. It was more about the suspense and the thrill. And you need to have a certain kind of taste to actually enjoy it. And the game it's based off of, I haven't played it before, but apparently it's very faithful to the original, which I'm sure is going to please some fans as well. Which has not been the case for most YouTuber movies. But regardless, it's a good adaptation of the game. But what if it wasn't? Adaptations and remakes are nothing new in the video game and movie/TV series industry. And there is the good, the bad, and the ugly. These kinds of products are naturally very divisive, however, because I mean, on one hand, you want to be able to make it viewable for modern audiences, but at the same time, you have to also please the old fans, which, as you can imagine, is very fucking hard to do. It's like choosing between sweet and salty foods, Jif or GIF, pineapple or no pineapple on pizza, slicing grilled cheese diagonally or horizontally, femboys or tomboys. It is practically impossible to please everyone equally. So directors usually go one of 3 routes. They either stay very faithful or at least a little faithful to the source material. 2, they drift, or the third option, they scribble all over the writing and call it a day. Trying to please both audiences is like trying to do a god run from all the Souls games. Let's look at some popular examples of adaptations. The first 2 movies of the Harry Potter series, the Lord of the Rings trilogy, and the Hunger Games movies. Other than being popular, one thing that these have in common is their faithfulness to their source material. Other than taking advantages of the medium of film and of course adding visuals, these movies stay so incredibly true to the books that you would think the authors and the directors were sleeping together and sharing each other's writing secrets. As a result, you create a film or series that resonates both with the old fans and modern audiences, usually, since they don't necessarily have any knowledge of the source material. But as with most things in life, adaptations aren't perfect. Pacing issues between both mediums arise because while reading 20 or so pages on a Tuesday evening is very normal and light-hearted for someone, for another person, those 20 pages can feel like being stuck on the toilet with diarrhea. Just when you think you can finally get up from the toilet, it kicks in again. But what if instead of following the original story, you let the directors do their own thing? Faithfulness doesn't necessarily equal quality, and likewise, just because something doesn't follow the source material one-to-one doesn't mean it's going to be bad. In fact, it's precisely by taking creative liberties and sacrifices that an adaptation can actually soar above and beyond the source material. Yo, these breadsticks are fire. Wait, hold on. Damn. Okay, anyways, in terms of drifting from source material, The Boys TV series starting from 2019 and Fight Club are really great examples of how you can completely change someone's recipe and still cook up a 5-star meal. Bro, The Boys comic was horrible. It was written as if Garth Ennis took all his qualities that made his stories unique and memorable and actually more interesting and less cliche compared to the more traditional superhero stories at the time, and just, threw them out the goddamn window. The original comic and the series are similar in the sense that they center on the eponymous boys going after evil superheroes, which I'll go into a little more later. And they basically both have a lot of violence and gore, but everything else between them are hella different. First off, the kind of gore and the narrative it was trying to express itself in is drastically improved in the series. Every time something shocking was shown in the comic, it just felt like it was there for the sake of being there. In the series, there's actually reason for it, or at least usually there is. It honestly feels like the comic has more friggin' blood than pages, which is kind of sad. Back to the superheroes, in quotation marks. Basically, in universe, there's something called Compound V, which is this liquid that gives the superheroes their powers. Is a point of contention in the story from the boys' perspective. I mean, they're fighting literal reincarnations of the devil who are laced with this stuff, and you know, it would just go against their principles, their morals and values if they took it. And eventually some of them do, which understandably the group members react hostile to. In the original comic, that dilemma is just not there, it's non-existent. Straight up, the characters just take the Compound V and go on with their day and continue the series as usual. Narratively, the TV series is just better in every single way. Objectively as well, the characters in the comic are so much worse, and they have about as much depth as a friggin' A4 sheet of paper. I'm not kidding when I say watching paint dry is more entertaining than witnessing these characters on the page. The loop we see in the comics is that the boys see bad guy. Bad guy is seen doing bad stuff. The boys confront bad guy dies. And you have a bunch of that for the rest of the series. In the TV show though, damn. The characters are genuinely interesting, and Homelander especially, Anthony Starr, wow, he friggin' outdid himself in this performance. Like, they made Homelander so freaking hateable. It's crazy. The characters are introduced well, they develop naturally and smoothly, they progress the story, and like I said, each one of them, even the small ones, are important. A-Train, who doesn't show up that much in the first 2 seasons, becomes a lot better in the second half. Overall, The Boys is just a really solid show, except maybe the 4th season, but that's still kind of good. The main reason season 4 just didn't feel as good as the previous seasons was, 1, the characters just didn't feel like themselves, and especially the way they were reacting to Huey in the 4th season just felt so wrong. And 2, Sister Sage, who is kind of one of the main highlights or focuses of the 4th season, just feels kind of blank. As a smart character, she's supposed to be written as this intellectual who knows everything and can apparently cure cancer but doesn't want to or something. And yeah, she boils down to basically just one of those characters that say, according to my calculations, this was supposed to happen, blah blah blah, and then when a plan goes wrong, she just goes, oh no, this was part of the plan, and I'm like, what? Anyways, the rest of the series is pretty good though, so I would say it's worth it. If American Psycho's Patrick Bateman has the most alpha male, sigma male edits on shit like TikTok and YouTube shorts, then Tyler Durden from Fight Club is probably really close. The Fight Club movie is a big classic that has built a cult following since its release, and is in fact so good that people think Fight Club is actually an original production / film, because it's just that much better than the book. Now, despite the film's runtime being arguably shorter than the reading time of the book, the pacing actually feels kind of great, and other people have said so too. And in addition, the movie, especially towards the second half and the ending, actually progresses the events and the plot further than the book. Damn, I'll never forget the first time I watched this movie. Saw this on Netflix and was like, I was expecting some Baki type tournament and seeing, you know, all kinds of men beat each other up in this underground fight club, you know. Turns out the movie is just about some friggin' broken man who is about as delusional as the average Twitter user. And honestly, the plot twist toward the end might seem predictable, but back in the day, this shit honestly made it a product of its time, and it still is. The movie is much more popular than the book, although this goes for most sources and their adaptations. It's for good reason. It's that generally the movie is much more well received than the book. 2 things that The Boys TV show and the Fight Club movie have in common are their knowledge of the original and, you know, the balls to drift from the OG story at least somewhat while still making their own narrative complete and well written. And now that we've covered adaptations to the big screens, what about a more interactive medium? Video game adaptations are low-key more divisive than the other kinds I just talked about. I mean, come on, how do you turn one of the greatest narrative-driven shooters of all time into a movie about rain? Okay, surely the movie isn't that bad, right?
You following us, asshole? No. I'm only following you.
Yeah. Don't mind me, I'm just gonna go ram myself into a freaking steel plate. The tone of the characters and their line delivery are friggin' jokes. The Last of Us series is relatively solid, but it felt like there were no zombies outside of like maybe 2 or 3 episodes, and it's not as engaging as the game. It's good, but no one would really recommend you to watch the show. Instead, they just tell you to play the game. And most other video game adaptations fall flat of expectations. It's not that the adaptations themselves aren't similar enough to the originals. It's that they fail to capture what made the source so entertaining, which is why some of them end up being forgettable in most people's minds. Now, let me put y'all on real quick. I'm sure most of y'all have heard of Rockstar, especially now that we've been waiting about 10 million years now for GTA 6. Anyways, most people talk about GTAs and their Red Deads, but in conversations about underrated games, one game usually pops up, Bully. But that's not what I'm going to talk about. Another game, The Warriors, has, in my opinion, the best brawler hand-to-hand combat in Rockstar's entire history. I'm not even kidding. This is easily one of the most slept-on games in history, considering it's made, or at least published, by one of the biggest video game studios out there. The game both adapts the events of the Warriors movie from 1979 and creates its own prequel story that actually makes sense and is cohesive. The game has a gritty atmosphere that suits the environment so much. You got loud-ass gangsters whose faces look like they were put into a blender and pasted onto their heads, and all the important characters, Cleon, Swan, Cochise, Rembrandt, Ajax, etc., all of them are given much more characterization, and it makes the movie part of the game hit so much harder. The game overall is just really solid. Now, yes, some of the specific elements in certain missions have aged, like the Botox in the Kardashians' bodies, but those are very few and far between and don't kill the pace of the game at all, so it's barely noticeable. Oh, and did I mention that the game has amazing combat? The soundtrack as well is amazing, and it's just... it's beautiful. Adds so much to the immersion. Instead of focusing on gangsters, however, now let's focus on, Caliban lookalikes. Mad Max is quite old and actually began back in the 70s before most of us were even born. And since then, a handful of movies have been made. Alongside those movies, a game in 2015 came out. Now, the 2015 game was similar to the Warriors video game in the sense that it served kind of as a prequel to some elements in the series, or the movie series specifically, and is actually considered canon by most standards. And damn, the combat system slaps harder than Will Smith. In addition, the world design and open world format just fuse seamlessly to form such an interesting environment, even though you're exploring the in-game equivalent to the Sahara Desert. The two main systems that are at play are the driving and the combat. The combat makes you feel like you have cinder blocks for arms, and each attack just feels so visceral and powerful. The game also boasts an incredible customization and progression system for both Max and his magnum opus, which is... it might not seem like it, but trust me, it is a good car and it gets better. The raw options leave you with so many different ways to approach the game's many sadistic warlords and derelict looking environments. It's been a hella long time since I've played this game, so I don't have much else to say, but I only have good memories. The Warriors and Mad Max prove that all you need are a heart when it comes to making adaptations, and yeah, if you do so, you'll come out with a pretty banging product. Now, are all source material better than their respective adaptations? Hell no. Some of them surpass the original and feel like they're better, and others just kind of feel like trying to throw cooked noodles at a wall to see if they'll stick. Some adaptations are solid in their own right, but they don't take enough inspiration from the original to consider it a product in the same league as the source. Realistically, they come in all shapes and sizes, and despite what women may tell you and me, it's big enough, trust me. Some stories simply play it safe and stick to the source material, which is fine, of course. While others go big or go home, they diverge from the OG and also manage to surpass them. Point is, as long as you keep the core of the characters and the tone of the original intact, while possibly making it better, you're chilling. Let me know down below if y'all want to see more vids like this or just more videos in general. As always, it's been a pleasure, and I'm out.